The great halls of the Observer Council stood quiet as Elder Gray moved slowly toward the center platform. His four-fingered hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the simple blue robe that marked his position as chief scientist. For 300 cycles, the observers had maintained their watch of the stars, sending signals into the darkness. For 300 cycles, no answer had come. The universe is empty, many now believed. We are alone. Elder Gray did not share this view, but after so many years of silence, even he had begun to doubt. The council chambers, carved from the pale stone of their homeworld's largest mountain, held 30 of the wisest observers. Today, they gathered for what most considered a mere formality, the annual report on deep space signals. Esteemed council, Elder Gray began, his voice thin with age, I bring the 300th report of our deep space listening program. Council Leader White nodded, her eyes half closed as if already bored. Proceed, Elder. Though I expect this report resembles the last 50 you have delivered. A small ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. Elder Gray ignored it. Our arrays have detected nothing of note from neighboring systems, he continued, following the traditional words. No signals of intelligent origin have been... Oh, soft chime interrupted him. The small device at his wrist pulsed with blue light, a signal from the observatory. Elder Gray paused, confused. The observatory staff knew better than to interrupt a council meeting. Is there a problem, Elder? Asked Council Leader White. I am not certain, Elder Gray replied, touching the device. A simple message appeared. Return immediately. Anomaly detected. The council members shifted in their seats, unused to disruptions of any kind. The observers valued order above all else. It seems I must cut this report short, Elder Gray said. The observatory requires my attention. What could possibly be so urgent? Asked Council Member Green, his voice sharp with annoyance. Another comet? A solar flare? Elder Gray shook his head. I do not know, but I intend to find out. The observatory sat atop the highest peak of the mountain range, its white domes gleaming in the light of their yellow sun. By the time Elder Gray arrived, the main control room buzzed with activity, something he had not seen in decades. What is happening? He demanded as he entered. Young observer Tech Brown rushed forward, his eyes wide with excitement. Elder, we detected something entering the outer reaches of our system. Something artificial. Elder Gray's hearts beat faster. Show me. Tech Brown led him to the main display, where a blurry image showed a distant object moving at impossible speed. Data streams filled the surrounding screens, numbers and calculations that made no sense. This cannot be right, Elder Gray muttered, adjusting the display settings himself. Nothing can travel at these speeds. The energy requirements would be impossible by our understanding, finished Tech Brown. Yet there it is. Elder Gray stared at the readings. The object was slowing now, its trajectory bringing it toward the fourth planet of their system, a small colony established 50 cycles ago. Have you contacted the colony? He asked. Tech Purple, the communications specialist, nodded quickly. Yes, Elder, they report visual confirmation. It's a ship of some kind, but unlike anything in our records. A ship? Elder Gray's voice dropped to a whisper. From where? Unknown, said Tech Purple. But it appears damaged. Its course is erratic, and it's emitting radiation patterns we've never seen before. Elder Gray studied the image as the computer enhanced it. The ship was indeed like nothing the observers had ever built. Where observer vessels were smooth and round, this craft was angular with strange protrusions and what appeared to be external engines, a design the observers had abandoned centuries ago as inefficient. It's heading directly toward Colony 4, said Tech Brown. At its current speed, it will reach them in 6 hours. Have they tried communicating with it? Elder Gray asked. Yes, Tech Purple replied. They've sent standard greeting signals on all frequencies, no response. Elder Gray stood silent for a long moment. In all their history, the observers had never encountered another spacefaring species. Their scientists had calculated the odds as infinitesimally small, so small that most had concluded it was impossible. Their own ventures into space had been cautious, methodical. They had established colonies on the two nearest planets, but had never attempted to leave their star system. The energy requirements were too great, the distances too vast, yet here was proof that someone, something, had done what they thought impossible. "Alert the Defense Ministry," Elder Gray finally said, "and prepare my ship. I'm going to Colony 4. Tech Brown looked alarmed. "Elder, at your age the journey might be—" "I have waited 300 cycles for this moment," Elder Gray interrupted. "I will not miss it because of old bones." Colony 4 was the smallest of the observer outposts, home to just 2,000 colonists who maintained the mining operations on the small rocky planet. Observer Blue, the colony administrator, had never expected anything exciting to happen during his assignment. Colony 4 was where careers went to die quietly. Now he stood in the colony's small observation dome, watching the alien ship grow larger in the view screen. "Have the shelters been prepared?" he asked his assistant. "Yes, Administrator," replied Assistant Orange. "All colonists have been moved to the underground facilities as ordered." "Good." Observer Blue nodded. "And the defense systems?" Assistant Orange hesitated. "They're operational, sir. But they were designed to deflect asteroids, not combat. An unknown vessel. Let us hope we don't need them at all," Observer Blue said quietly. The ship was clearly visible now, even to the naked eye, a dark shape against the stars, trailing what looked like smoke or vapor. Its surface was scorched in places, and parts of it appeared to be breaking away as it entered the thin atmosphere of Colony 4. "It's going to crash," Assistant Orange realized aloud. "Right here." Observer Blue touched the communication panel. "Attention, unknown vessel. You are on collision course with our colony. Please adjust your trajectory if possible. We are sending navigation data now." No response came, but the ship's path seemed to shift slightly, not enough to avoid impact entirely, but enough to suggest some control remained. "They're trying to land," Observer Blue said. "Alert the emergency teams. Prepare for whatever comes next." The alien ship disappeared behind the rocky ridge to the east of the colony. Moments later, the ground shook as a tremendous boom echoed across the landscape. A plume of dust rose into the sky. Observer Blue took a deep breath. "And now we wait." But they didn't wait long. Just minutes after the crash, their sensors detected movement from the ship. Something was emerging. "Magnify," ordered Observer Blue. The screen showed a figure climbing from a hatch in the damaged vessel. It stood on two legs like the observers, but its proportions were all wrong, the limbs too long, the head too small. It wore some kind of protective suit, but even through it, Observer Blue could tell this creature was nothing like his people. The figure turned, seeming to look directly at the colony's cameras. Then it raised a hand in what might have been a greeting, or a warning. "Elder Gray's ship will arrive in 3 hours," Assistant Orange said quietly. "Let's hope that's soon enough," replied Observer Blue, watching as a second figure emerged from the crashed ship. "Because after 300 cycles of silence, it seems we are no longer alone." And as if to emphasize this point, a third figure appeared, carrying what was unmistakably a weapon. Captain James Reed knew they were in trouble the moment the Pathfinder exited the jump. The ship shuddered violently, emergency lights bathing the bridge in angry red. Warning klaxons blared as system after system reported critical failures. "Status. Report," he shouted over the noise, gripping his command chair as another tremor rocked the vessel. Engineer Jane Wilson's fingers flew across her console, her face grim in the emergency lighting. "The experimental drive overloaded during the jump, Captain. We're venting plasma from the main reactor and the containment field is failing." "Can you stabilize it?" Jane shook her head. "Not without shutting down completely for repairs. And if we do that, we lose life support," Reed finished for her. "Options?" Navigator Tom looked up from his own displays, face pale but voice steady. "Sir, we've emerged near an uncharted star system. There's a planet within range. Small, rocky, but it has an atmosphere. Thin, but breathable." "Any signs of civilization?" Reed asked, already knowing they had no choice. The Pathfinder, humanity's most advanced deep space vessel, was dying around them. Tom adjusted his scanner. I'm picking up... Wait, that can't be right. He looked up, eyes wide. Captain, I'm detecting artificial structures and energy signatures. There's someone down there. A strange silence fell over the bridge, drowning out even the alarms for a moment. Humanity had spent centuries searching for intelligent life among the stars. They had found microbes, simple organisms, the remnants of ancient civilizations long turned to dust. But never, not once, had they found another spacefaring species. Until now, when they were about to crash right into them. Well, Reed said, breaking the silence. This isn't how first contact was supposed to go. The ship lurched again, more violently this time. A support beam broke loose from the ceiling, crashing down mere inches from the navigation console. We're losing structural integrity, Jane reported. Captain, we need to land, now. Reed nodded, making the hardest decision of his career. Tom, plot us a course away from any population centers. Try to put us down somewhere isolated. Jane, divert all remaining power to the landing thrusters and life support, and someone try to raise whoever's down there on all frequencies. Let them know we come in peace and that we're really sorry about this. Communications Officer Dan tapped frantically at his console. Sending standard greeting packages on all bands, sir. No response yet. Reed stood, steadying himself against his chair. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for emergency landing procedures. This is not a drill. Throughout the ship, the 23 crew members of the Pathfinder, scientists, engineers and explorers all, strapped themselves into crash positions. They had trained for this, but training never captured the bone-deep terror of a ship breaking apart around you. In the medical bay, Dr. Mark secured his patients, 2 engineers injured when the drive first malfunctioned, and whispered a quick prayer. In the science lab, biologist Lisa frantically backed up their research data, knowing they might lose everything. In engineering, Chief Mechanic Ben worked desperately to keep the engines functioning just long enough to land. On the bridge, Reed watched as the small planet grew larger in the view screen. They were committed now. I'm detecting signals from the surface, Dan reported. They're trying to communicate. Send everything we've got, Reed ordered. First contact protocols, translation matrices, the works. The ship entered the planet's thin atmosphere, fire blooming around the hull as friction heated the metal. The Pathfinder was never designed for atmospheric entry without proper preparation, and it showed. Panels tore free, spiraling away into the alien sky. Brace for impact, Reed shouted as the ground rushed up to meet them. The Pathfinder hit hard, skidding across rocky terrain. Metal screamed as the hull scraped against stone. The bridge view screen shattered. Emergency foam deployed throughout the ship, cushioning the crew as the vessel finally ground to a halt. For a long moment, there was only silence and darkness. Then, one by one, emergency systems came back online. Reed coughed, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. Sound off. Around him, his bridge. Crew responded, battered but alive. Reed hit the ship-wide comm. All sections report. The reports came in slowly. 3 more injured, 1 seriously. Multiple hull breaches. The experimental drive had finally given up completely, leaking radiation into the engine room, which had automatically sealed itself. Jane, what's our situation with that radiation? Reed asked, helping Dan out from under a fallen console. Jane checked her handheld scanner, frowning. It's not like anything I've seen before, Captain. The jump drive creates exotic particles as a byproduct. They're contained in normal operation, but now... She looked up. We need to seal off that section completely, and we should warn our new neighbors. We don't know how these particles might affect them. Reed nodded. Dan, keep trying to establish communication. Tom, what's our location relative to their settlement? Tom had managed to get a portable scanner working. About 5 kilometers east of what looks like a small colony, sir. Maybe 2,000 inhabitants based on energy signatures. All right. Reed surveyed the ruins of his bridge, making another difficult decision. I need a team to assess the exterior damage. Volunteers? Jane, Tom, and Security Officer Mack all stepped forward. Reed nodded, unsurprised. Suit up. Full environmental gear. We don't know what's out there. Observer Blue watched the colony's screens intently as three figures emerged from the crashed alien vessel. They wore bulky suits that covered them completely, with transparent faceplates that revealed glimpses of their strange features. They carried tools and what might be weapons. They're coming this way, Assistant Orange reported nervously. Are the defense systems ready? Observer Blue asked. Yes, Administrator, but I must remind you that Elder Gray's instructions were clear. No hostile action unless directly threatened. Observer Blue nodded reluctantly. Keep the systems on standby, and continue monitoring that radiation. What do we know about it? Tech Purple consulted her readings. It's unlike anything in our database, Administrator. It seems to be some form of exotic particle emission, highly energetic. Our sensors indicate it's slowly spreading from the crash site. Is it dangerous? Unknown, Tech Purple admitted. But I would recommend caution. Our biology may not be adapted to such exposure. Observer Blue sighed, feeling the weight of 300 cycles of history on his shoulders. The observers had always believed they were alone in the universe. Their society, their science, their very philosophy was built on that belief. And now, without warning, everything had changed. Administrator, called Tech Green from the communication station. I'm receiving a signal from the aliens. I think they're trying to communicate. Put it on screen, Observer Blue ordered. The main display filled with strange symbols and diagrams, mathematical equations, atomic structures, simple drawings of bipedal figures. The message repeated, changing slightly each time as if the aliens were trying different approaches. They're intelligent, Observer Blue murmured. Clearly advanced. Their ship may be damaged, but the technology to travel between stars. You're trailed off, contemplating the implications. Administrator, Assistant Orange said urgently. The radiation from their ship, it's increasing, and our preliminary analysis suggests it could be harmful to our people. Observer Blue stared at the screen showing the three alien figures now making their way slowly toward the colony. They moved carefully, stopping often to take readings or examine the environment. They did not move like invaders, but like explorers, cautious, curious. Alert the medical team to prepare for possible radiation exposure, he decided, and send out a small scout team to intercept these aliens before they reach the colony. No weapons visible, but keep them ready. I want to know what we're dealing with before Elder Gray arrives. As the orders were carried out, Observer Blue couldn't help but wonder what these strange beings wanted, and why they had come here of all places. After centuries of searching the stars and finding nothing, the universe had suddenly delivered aliens right to their doorstep, in the most dramatic way possible. Let us hope, he said quietly to himself, that their crash was an accident, and not the beginning of something worse. Outside under the alien sky, Captain Reed and his team made their way slowly toward the colony, carrying a makeshift white flag, a universal symbol of peace they hoped would transcend the stars. Part 3. First Contact. The rocky terrain crunched beneath Captain Reed's boots as he led his small team toward the alien colony. The planet's gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, giving each step a subtle bounce that would take time to adjust to. Above them, the sky held an odd greenish tint, with the colony's parent star shining yellow through thin clouds. Radiation levels? Reed asked, not taking his eyes off the path ahead. Jane checked her scanner. Still spreading from the ship, Captain. The exotic particles are behaving strangely in this atmosphere. They're dispersing faster than I calculated. Reed nodded grimly. Their first act upon meeting an alien civilization would be to warn them about the dangerous radiation leaking from their crashed ship. Not exactly the triumphant first contact humanity had dreamed of. Movement ahead, Security Officer Mack announced, quietly, raising his hand. About half a kilometer. Reed squinted through his helmet visor. Several figures were approaching from the direction of the colony. They moved with a careful grace, and even at this distance their alien nature was obvious. Remember, Reed said to his team, no sudden movements. Keep your hands visible. Follow first contact protocols. Those protocols didn't exactly plan for crash into their planet and contaminate it with exotic radiation, Tom muttered. We improvise, Reed replied simply. As the two groups drew closer, Reed got his first clear look at the aliens. They stood slightly shorter than humans, with slim bodies covered in pale, smooth skin that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Their faces featured large, almond-shaped eyes, two sets of them, one above the other, and small mouths with no visible nose. They wore simple, functional clothing in muted colors, and carried what appeared to be scientific instruments rather than weapons. Reed stopped about 20 meters from the alien group and slowly raised the white flag they had fashioned from a piece of medical cloth, universal symbol of peace, he said clearly, knowing his suit's external speakers would project his voice. Though I realize it might not be so universal after all. The alien stopped as well. One of them, wearing blue garments that seemed more elaborate than the others, stepped forward slightly. It raised a hand with 4 long fingers in what might have been their own greeting. Now what? Tom whispered. Now, said Reed. We try to communicate. He turned to Jane. You're our best shot at this. Ready to make history? Jane nodded, stepping forward with a small device in her hand. The universal translator was a work in progress not yet fully tested, but it was all they had. She activated the device, which projected a simple holographic display between the two groups. Mathematical equations appeared first, basic arithmetic then progressing to algebra, geometry, and calculus. Numbers were thought to be universal. Mathematics, the most likely common ground between different intelligent species. The alien in blue watched intently, then produced its own device. A moment later, their hologram joined Jane's, the equations responding to hers, confirming, correcting, expanding. A silent conversation in the language of mathematics. It's working, Jane whispered, excitement clear in her voice. Slowly, the holograms shifted from pure mathematics to simple pictures, a star, a planet, basic atomic structures. With each exchange, the communication grew more complex. Jane added simple human figures to her projection. The alien responded with figures of their own kind. Reed felt a profound sense of awe. After centuries of searching the stars, humanity was finally speaking with another intelligent species. Despite their crash landing, despite the danger they had inadvertently brought with them, this moment was nothing short of miraculous. The exchange continued for nearly an hour, the two sides gradually building a rudimentary shared language. Eventually, Jane turned to Reed. I think we can try actual communication now, Captain. It won't be perfect, but the translator has enough to work with. Reed nodded and stepped forward. My name is James Reed. We are humans from the planet Earth. He gestured to his chest, then toward the sky in the direction they had come from, though Earth was far too distant to see. The translator converted his words into a series of symbols and sounds. After a moment, the alien in blue responded. The translator took several seconds to process, then produced, I am Observer Blue. We are observers. This is Colony 4. Reed couldn't help the smile that spread across his face. First words exchanged between two intelligent species. Whatever happened next, this moment would be remembered forever. We apologize for our arrival, Reed continued. Our ship was damaged. The crash was not intentional. A longer pause as the translator worked, then. We have many questions. Why have you come to our system? Exploration, Reed answered truthfully. We seek knowledge and peaceful contact with other intelligent life. Observer Blue seemed to consider this, its 4 eyes blinking in an odd pattern. Your ship leaks dangerous energy. Our sensors detect it spreading. Reed nodded gravely. Yes, that's one reason we came to find you. The radiation from our ship could be harmful. Your people should stay away from the crash site. As the translator conveyed this message, the aliens conferred among themselves, their voices soft and melodic. Finally, Observer Blue responded, We have detected this danger. Our colony is preparing. We can help, Jane interjected. We understand this radiation. It comes from our drive system. technology we're still developing. The translator struggled with some of these concepts, but Observer Blue seemed to grasp the meaning. You travel between stars with unfinished technology? There was something in the alien's response that the translator couldn't quite capture. Perhaps surprise or even disapproval. We're explorers, Reed said simply. Sometimes that means taking risks. Before Observer Blue could respond, one of the other aliens approached urgently, speaking rapidly. The translator couldn't keep up, but the alarm was clear in the alien's body language. Observer Blue turned back to the humans. A storm approaches. Atmospheric disturbance. Very dangerous on this planet. You must return to your ship. Reed glanced at the sky. Dark clouds were indeed gathering on the horizon, moving with surprising speed. Our ship is damaged, he explained. It won't provide adequate shelter. Another quick conference among the aliens. Observer Blue seemed to be arguing with one of the others, a taller individual wearing gray. Finally, Observer Blue turned back. To the humans, you will come to our colony, for shelter only. When storm passes, you return to your ship. Reed nodded gratefully. Thank you, but I should warn you. We can't leave our injured crew members behind, and we need to contain the radiation leaking from our ship. The translator conveyed this, leading to another heated discussion among the aliens. Finally, Observer Blue responded. Send your people to help your injured. We will send our scientists to study the radiation. Together, we will find solution. 2 hours later, storm winds howled outside the colony's protective dome. Inside, humans and observers worked side by side in an uneasy alliance. Dr. Mark treated the injured crew members while observer medical personnel watched with fascination. In another section, Jane worked with observer scientists, trying to explain the exotic particles leaking from the Pathfinder's damaged drive. Observer, Elder Gray had arrived just as the storm hit, his small ship barely making it safely to the landing pad. Now he stood with Captain Reed and Observer Blue, watching the collaborative efforts. In 300 cycles, Elder Gray said through the increasingly accurate translator, we have believed ourselves alone. We sent signals to the stars. No answer came. We were looking too, Reed replied. All this time we were both searching. Yet you found us by accident, Elder Gray noted, his upper eyes blinking in what Reed was beginning to recognize as amusement. Sometimes the greatest discoveries happen that way, Reed said with a slight smile. Outside, the storm intensified. The colony's structures groaned under the assault of wind and debris. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. Eastern shield failing, announced an observer technician. Storm damage to generator. Observer Blue moved quickly to a control panel. Divert power from secondary systems. Not enough, the technician replied. Shield will fail in minutes. Eastern quadrant will be exposed. Reed exchanged glances with Jane, who had looked up from her work with the observer scientists. We can help, Reed said firmly. The Pathfinder's emergency generators are still functional. We use them for our landing thrusters. Observer Blue's 4 eyes focused on Reed. Your technology caused this danger. The radiation is a problem we'll solve, Reed interrupted. But right now your people need our help. Let us give it. After a moment's hesitation, Observer Blue nodded. Very well. Reed turned to his crew. Mac, Tom, get back to the ship. Salvage the emergency generators and whatever tools you need. Move fast. As the humans rushed to help, Elder Gray moved beside Observer Blue. They are strange creatures, the Elder observed quietly. Reckless, perhaps, but brave. Observer Blue watched as the humans organized themselves with remarkable efficiency, already adapting to the crisis. Yes, he agreed. Dangerous, but perhaps useful allies. Outside, the storm raged on, heedless of the historic cooperation taking place beneath its fury. Morning broke over Colony 4, revealing the storm's aftermath. Debris littered the landscape around the settlement, but the colony itself stood intact, thanks to the combined efforts of humans and observers. The Pathfinder's emergency generators, hastily integrated with the colony's power grid, had kept the eastern shield functioning throughout the night. In the colony's main hall, Captain Reed sat across from Elder Gray and Observer Blue. The translator device between them had been improved overnight, with Jane and the observer scientists working tirelessly to expand its vocabulary. Your quick action saved many lives, Elder Gray acknowledged, his four eyes studying Reed with open curiosity. The eastern quadrant houses our agricultural systems. Without them, the colony would face food shortages. Reed nodded. We're glad we could help, and we appreciate the shelter for our injured crew. A fair exchange, Observer Blue said. But now we must discuss the greater problem. Reed knew what was coming. The radiation from our ship. Yes. Elder Gray leaned forward, slightly. Our scientists have studied the readings. These exotic particles are unlike anything in our knowledge. They are spreading through our atmosphere, and early tests suggest they may be harmful to our biology. We're working on containment solutions, Reed assured them. Engineer Jane and Chief Mechanic Ben believe they can modify our ship's containment fields to capture the leaked particles. Your engineer Jane has shared much about your technology, Elder Gray said. It is surprising. Reed raised an eyebrow. Surprising how? Elder Gray seemed to choose his words carefully. Your approach to space travel is unlike ours. You use great energy, brute force methods. We would consider many of your systems dangerously unstable. Yet you never left your star system, Reed pointed out, while we've explored dozens. At what cost? Observer Blue interjected. Your ship is severely damaged, your crew injured, and now our colony faces contamination. Reed couldn't argue with that assessment. Our methods may seem reckless to you, but humanity has always been willing to take risks to explore, to discover. He paused. It's how we found you. Before the conversation could continue, the door slid open and Jane entered, accompanied by an observer scientist in purple garments. Captain, Jane said, excitement clear in her voice. We've made a breakthrough with the containment problem. Reed gestured for her to continue. Observer Tech Purple here has theoretical models for particle containment that we never considered, Jane explained. They're based on completely different physics principles than what we use. And while the observers never built actual containment, fields this powerful, because we never needed them, Tech Purple added. Our energy systems are designed for efficiency, not the power levels your ship requires. Right, Jane continued. But if we combine their theoretical models with our practical engineering, we might be able to contain the radiation, Reed finished, understanding dawning. How soon? We need to build a prototype, Jane said. With the observer's help, maybe 2 days. Elder Gray and Observer Blue exchanged looks. 2 days may be too long, Observer Blue said. Our atmospheric models show the particles will reach critical concentration in the colony within 30 hours. Then we work faster, Reed stated simply. In another part of the colony, Dr. Mark stood in the observer medical facility, fascinated by the technology around him. The observer's medical science was advanced in some ways, primitive in others. Their understanding of genetics far surpassed humanity's, but their surgical techniques were surprisingly limited. You never developed invasive surgery? Mark asked. Tech Green, the lead medical scientist. Rarely needed, Tech Green explained, examining blood samples from the human crew. Our regenerative treatments and genetic therapies prevent most physical injuries or ailments. Mark nodded, watching as Tech Green placed a human blood sample under a scanner. And what have you learned about us? Fascinating biology, Tech Green said, genuine excitement in their voice. Your cells are both simpler and more complex than ours, less efficient in some ways, remarkably adaptable in others. The observer looked up. Your genetic diversity is extraordinary, almost as if your species was designed to survive anything, not designed, Mark corrected. Evolved, through countless challenges and near extinctions. Perhaps that explains your approach to space travel, Tech Green mused. You evolved to take risks. The conversation was interrupted by an alarm from one of the medical pods. Inside, one of the injured human engineers was experiencing elevated heart rate and fever. Radiation sickness, Mark said grimly, moving to the pod. I was afraid of this. The exotic particles affect human biology too. Tech Green moved quickly to another pod, where an observer patient was displaying similar symptoms. This observer was part of the first team to approach your ship. The symptoms are different but appear related to the same exposure. Mark studied the readings from both patients. Different symptoms but similar underlying mechanisms. The radiation is attacking cellular functions at the molecular level. Our standard treatments are ineffective, Tech Green reported, frustration evident. Mark thought for a moment. We need to combine our approaches. Your genetic therapies might be adapted to human physiology, and our radiation treatments might help the observers. Tech Green hesitated. Such experimentation would be unprecedented. So is everything about this situation, Mark pointed out. We have 2 patients getting worse by the hour. Are you willing to try? After a brief pause, Tech Green nodded. Yes, let us begin. In the colony's central plaza, a growing crowd of observers gathered, watching the humans with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Among them stood Observer Commander Stone, recently arrived from the Observer homeworld with a security detail. They are dangerous, Commander Stone said to his gathered supporters. Their technology is unstable, their methods reckless, and now they bring contamination to our colony. They also saved the Eastern Quadrant during the storm, one observer pointed out. A problem they helped create, Stone countered. And now Elder Gray and Observer Blue allow them access to our most advanced knowledge? Our medical facilities? This is madness, the crowd murmured, opinions divided. Stone continued, his voice rising. 300 cycles we have searched the stars carefully, methodically. We have developed our technology with precision and safety. Then these humans arrive, crashing into our world with their dangerous ship, their unproven theories. Yet, they've traveled between stars, another observer said. Something we only dreamed of. At what cost? Stone demanded. Look at their ship. Broken, leaking deadly radiation. Is that the future you want for our people? To become like them, throwing ourselves recklessly into space, bringing chaos wherever we go? The debate grew heated, reflecting the growing division among the observers. For centuries, their society had valued caution, calculation, and controlled progress. The humans represented something entirely different, a species that embraced risk, that pushed boundaries even at great cost. Back in the improvised laboratory, Jane worked alongside Tech Purple and several other observer scientists. Components from the Pathfinder had been carefully transported to the colony and integrated with observer technology. Your power systems are remarkably efficient, Jane commented, studying an observer energy cell. We could never achieve this level of miniaturization. Yet your systems produce 10 times the output, Tech Purple replied. We never considered such power levels necessary or safe. Jane nodded, making adjustments to their prototype containment generator. Different approaches to the same problems. You optimize for efficiency and safety. We optimize for power and range. A dangerous approach, Tech Purple observed. Sometimes, Jane admitted, but it's gotten us across the galaxy. A soft chime interrupted their work, a message from the medical facility. Jane read it, her expression brightening. Dr. Mark and Tech Green have developed a treatment for the radiation exposure. It's working on both species. Tech Purple's 4 eyes widened slightly. They combined our medical approaches? Apparently so, Jane said with a smile. And it's working better than either approach alone. Tech Purple was silent for a moment, then returned to the containment prototype with renewed focus. Perhaps there is something to be said for your human methods after all. As they worked, neither noticed Commander Stone watching from the laboratory entrance, his posture rigid with disapproval. The security commander turned away, his mind made up. These humans and their dangerous innovations could not be allowed. To influence observer society, something would have to be done. Outside the colony, the exotic particle concentration continued to rise, carried on the winds toward the larger settlements beyond. The containment field generator hummed to life, its blue glow illuminating the faces of humans and observers gathered in the colony's central chamber. Jane stepped back from the control panel, exchanging a nod with Tech Purple. After 3 days of nonstop work, their creation, a hybrid of human power systems and observer containment theory, was operational. Particle concentration is decreasing in the immediate area, Tech Purple announced, monitoring the readings. The field is working. A collective sigh of relief passed through the room. Captain Reed approached the device, studying its construction with appreciation. Observer design elegance combined with human engineering created something neither species could have built alone. How long until the radiation levels are safe? Elder Gray asked. Jane checked her calculations. At current rate, about 28 hours for the colony, but we'll need to expand the field's range to cover the crash site and surrounding areas. We've prepared transport to move additional generators to strategic locations, Observer Blue added. Within 3 days, the threat should be neutralized. Reed nodded, satisfied. It wasn't the smoothest first contact in history, but they were making it work. The injured crew members were recovering thanks to the combined medical treatments, and the radiation problem was being solved. The moment of triumph was short-lived. A colony-wide alarm suddenly blared, screens throughout the chamber flashing with urgent warnings. What now? Reed asked, moving to the central display. Observer Blue accessed the colony's sensor network, expression growing grave. Multiple objects, entering our atmosphere, not natural meteors, their descent is controlled. The screen showed several bright points of light streaking through the greenish sky, heading directly toward the colony. Are they yours? Elder Gray asked Reed. Reed shook his head. The Pathfinder was a solo mission. No other human ships could have reached this system yet. Then who? Observer Blue began, but was interrupted as Commander Stone entered the chamber, flanked by security personnel. I've taken command of colony defenses, Stone announced. These are the ancient Watchers returning. Elder Gray's 4 eyes widened in shock. The Watchers? But they're just legends, stories from before our recorded history. Not legends, Stone replied grimly. While you've been collaborating with these humans, our deep space array detected signals from the approaching crafts. They match fragments found in our oldest archives, the warnings left by our ancestors. The screens updated to show the objects more clearly as they entered lower atmosphere. Unlike the angular human ship or the smooth observer vessels, these were asymmetrical, organic-looking craft that seemed to pulse with internal light. The ancient texts speak of them, Stone continued. Entities that feed on energy, particularly the kind of exotic energy these humans have leaked into our atmosphere. Reed and Jane exchanged concerned looks. The drive radiation acted as a beacon, Jane realized. It drew them here. Precisely, Stone said, his tone accusing. Your reckless technology has brought doom upon us all. The Watchers were dormant, for millennia, until you woke them. Before Reed could respond, the colony shuddered as something impacted nearby. Warning lights flashed across the displays. They've landed, Tech Purple reported. 3 kilometers from the colony. They're moving this way. Observer Blue turned to Stone. Activate the defense systems. Already done, Stone replied. But they were designed to deflect meteors and space debris against intelligent attackers. He left the implication hanging. Reed stepped forward. Let us help. The Pathfinder has defensive capabilities. We can... You've done enough. Stone cut him off. Your presence, your technology, caused this threat. Elder Gray raised a hand, silencing the argument. Commander Stone, now is not the time for blame. If these truly are the ancient Watchers returning, we need every advantage. He turned to Reed. Captain, what can your ship offer? Reed didn't hesitate. Our weapon systems are damaged but salvageable. We have energy weapons designed for asteroid mining that can be repurposed. And our sensors might give us better information about what we're facing. Elder Gray nodded. Commander Stone, work with the humans. Observer Blue, Prepare the colony for possible evacuation. Stone looked ready to protest but gave a curt nod instead. Under protest. Noted. Elder Gray replied dryly. Now move. 2 hours later, Reed stood with Jane, Mac, and Commander Stone on a ridge overlooking the approaching threat. Through binoculars, they could see the intruders, tall, shifting figures that seemed to waver between solid and gaseous states. They moved with purpose toward the colony, leaving withered vegetation in their wake. Energy vampires, Jane murmured, scanning them with a modified sensor. They're absorbing all forms of energy from their surroundings: heat, electrical, biological. The legends say they consumed entire worlds in ancient times, Stone said, until our ancestors developed technology to drive them back into deep space. Technology we've lost, Reed noted. Stone's expression hardened. Because we believed the threat was gone forever, we turned to peaceful pursuits, scientific exploration. Well, now they're back, Mac said practically, and we need to deal with them. Reed lowered his binoculars. How many defense satellites does the colony have? 12, Stone replied. Basic deflector shields, minimal offensive capabilities. If we could retrofit them with components from the Pathfinder's weapon systems, Reed began. Jane was already calculating. It's possible. We'd need to boost the power and reprogram the targeting systems. That would take days, Stone objected. We have hours at most. Reed smiled grimly. That's where human ingenuity comes, and we're good at impossible deadlines. Back at the colony, controlled chaos reigned as humans and observers worked together. The Pathfinder's weapon systems, designed to pulverize asteroids for mining operations, were carefully dismantled and transported to the colony's satellite control center. Dr. Mark and Tech Green coordinated medical preparations, expecting casualties. Ben worked with observer engineers to boost the colony's shield capacity. Even the injured crew members contributed, advising on technical matters from their recovery beds. In the satellite control center, Jane worked feverishly alongside Tech, Purple, reconfiguring observer satellites to accommodate human weapons technology. Your code is elegant, Jane commented, studying the observer programming. But too rigid. We need to make it more adaptable. Adaptability creates vulnerabilities, Tech Purple replied. In normal circumstances, maybe, Jane conceded. But right now we need systems that can respond to the unexpected. Nearby, Reed and Stone monitored the approaching entities, now less than an hour from the colony's perimeter. There's something you should know, Reed said quietly. Your elder. Gray asked me earlier about our mission, why we came here. Stone's eyes narrowed. And the truth is we were testing an experimental jump drive, a way to travel vast distances instantly. That's what created the exotic radiation when it malfunctioned. So you were using untested technology, Stone said accusingly. Gambling with forces you barely understand. Reed didn't deny it. Yes. That's how humanity has always advanced. We take risks. Sometimes they pay off. Sometimes... He gestured at their current situation. Stone was silent for a moment. My people would never approach space travel that way. We might never have reached other stars, and we might never have created a containment field as elegant as the one we built together, Reed countered. Different approaches, Commander, both with their strengths. Their conversation was interrupted by Jane's excited voice. We're ready. The satellites are reconfigured. On the main screen, 12 points of light represented the defense satellites in orbit around the planet. Each now carried a modified version of the Pathfinder's mining lasers, powered by observer energy cells and guided by a hybrid navigation system. Now we need a strategy, Stone said, moving to the tactical display. My people have always favored caution and precision. One carefully calculated strike. Reed studied the approaching entities. But these creatures adapt quickly. We need to be unpredictable. Multiple strikes from different angles, changing patterns. Stone considered this, then nodded reluctantly. A human approach. Very well. Not human, Reed corrected. Not observer, something new. As night fell over Colony 4, the final preparations were made. The colonists were secured in the central shelters. The modified defense satellites were positioned. The hybrid containment fields protected the colony's most critical systems from energy drainage. From the colony's command center, Elder Gray addressed his people. For 300 cycles, we believed ourselves alone in the universe. In 1 week, we have encountered 2 other intelligent species, one that might become our greatest ally, and one that threatens our very existence. He turned to Reed, standing beside him. Captain Reed and his crew came to us by accident, bringing both danger and opportunity. Now we face this threat together. Reed stepped forward. My people have a saying. Necessity makes strange bedfellows. It means crisis brings unlikely allies together. He looked around at the mixed group of humans and observers. We crashed into your world with a dangerous ship, but maybe that crash was exactly what both our peoples needed. Outside, the ancient watchers approached the colony's perimeter, drawn by the energy signatures within. Above, the modified satellites moved into position, guided by the combined tactical thinking of humanity and observers. As the order to fire was given, Reed couldn't help but think how typical this was of humanity's journey among the stars. Chaos and danger, yes, but also discovery and connection. They had come looking for intelligent life and found it in the most unexpected way. The satellites fired in an unpredictable pattern, a dance of light and energy raining down on the ancient watchers. The battle for Colony 4, and perhaps for both their species, had begun. In the command center, human and observer stood side by side, watching the displays as their combined technology and tactics were put to the test. Whatever happened next, the universe had changed for both civilizations. They were no longer alone, for better or worse. They thought no one would come, Elder Gray murmured, watching the battle unfold. And then humanity crashed into us. With a dangerous ship, Reed added with a slight smile. Perhaps, Elder Gray replied. Exactly the kind of ship we needed. The stars looked cold and distant from the main viewing window of the Guardian. Captain James Walker stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his blue uniform crisp despite being 18 hours into his shift. The ship hummed around him, the newest and most powerful vessel in the United Earth Defense Fleet. But even the Guardian, with all its advanced systems, followed the Starship principle. Captain, incoming message from Outpost Sigma, called Lieutenant Anna Miller from her station. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel, her face lit by the blue glow of the screens. Walker nodded. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing the tired face of Commander Ray Wilson. The outpost commander looked like he hadn't slept in days. Captain Walker, Wilson said, his voice tight. We've lost contact with Weber Colony. Walker frowned. Technical difficulties? That's what I thought at first, but this makes 3 colonies in the last month. First Hawkins, then New Denver, and now Weber. Wilson ran a hand through his gray hair. No distress calls, no signs of attack. They just went silent. The bridge grew quiet. 3 colonies meant this wasn't an accident. Have you reported this to the Galactic Council? Walker asked. Wilson nodded. Their response was unhelpful. They suggested we check our communication equipment. Walker felt his jaw tighten. The Galactic Council had a way of ignoring human problems. Most of the older spacefaring races still saw humans as newcomers, even after 200 years among the stars. Send me all the data you have, Walker said. We'll investigate. After the call ended, Miller approached his side. Sir, the Council should be taking this more seriously. They follow protocols, Lieutenant, and their protocols say 3 missing colonies isn't enough to worry about yet. Walker turned to her. Plot a course to Weber Colony. Let's see for ourselves. The Guardian dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Weber system. The colony planet hung in the distance, a blue-green world that looked peaceful from space. Scans show the colony infrastructure is intact, reported Officer Tom Bell from the science station. Power signatures are normal, but I'm not detecting any movement on the surface. No ships in orbit or at the docking platforms, added Miller. It's like everyone just left. Walker studied the planet. 10,000 colonists couldn't just disappear. Any signs of the local defense ships? Nothing, sir, Miller said. Wait, detecting debris in high orbit. Could be from the Weber defense vessel. Walker ordered a small team to board a shuttle and check the colony. He wanted to go himself, but knew his place was on the Guardian. 8 hours later, the team returned with disturbing news. The colony is empty, sir, reported Security Chief Mark Davis. No bodies, no signs of struggle. The buildings are intact. Food was left on tables. It's like everyone vanished in the middle of daily life. Walker felt a chill run down his spine. And the data cores? Wiped clean, Davis said. Whoever did this didn't want to leave any clues. That night, Walker couldn't sleep. He walked the quiet halls of his ship, thinking about 10,000 missing people. The Starship Principle had kept peace in the galaxy for centuries. All vessels, no matter their size or purpose, had strict limits on their weapon systems. This meant no civilization could quickly overwhelm another, giving diplomacy time to work. But if someone was breaking that rule, his personal communicator beeped. It was Miller. Sir, I think I found something. Can you come to the data lab? Walker found her surrounded by holographic displays, her face serious in the blue light. I've been running deeper scans on the communication logs from Weber Colony, she said. Most of the data was erased, but I found fragments of an encrypted transmission, sent just before they went silent. She pulled up a display showing broken lines of code. It took some work, but I managed to recover part of the message. With a flick of her hand, she played the recovered transmission. Static filled the room, but through it, a man's voice could be heard, tight with fear. Not responding to hails, the ship doesn't match any known design. They're not. More static. Weapons beyond anything. The voice returned one last time, clearer. They aren't following the rules anymore. Walker felt his blood run cold. Can you clean it up more? Get a full message? Miller shook her head. This is everything that survived. But sir, what rules was he talking about? The only rules that matter between civilizations, Walker said quietly. The Starship Principle. The next morning, Walker called a meeting with his senior officers. The Guardians' conference. Room was plain but comfortable, with a table made of real wood, a luxury in space. The evidence suggests that someone attacked 3 human colonies using technology that breaks the Starship Principle, Walker told his team. If true, this threatens not just Earth, but the entire galactic peace. Chief Engineer Robert Green spoke up. That's a big claim, Captain. The principle is held for 400 years, and it only takes one group to break it, Walker replied. We need to investigate further, but carefully. If someone is using advanced weapons, the Guardian would be outmatched. Should we inform Earth Command? Asked Miller. Walker nodded. I've sent a full report, but until we have more evidence, I doubt they'll take major action. As if on cue, his communicator beeped with a message from Admiral Thomas Reed, the head of Earth's Defense Forces. Walker, I've reviewed your report, Reed's holographic image said. His face looked grave. Concerning, but not enough for us to make accusations at the Council. I'm giving you authorization to investigate further, but be discreet. The last thing we need is to create panic or appear paranoid to the older civilizations. After the call ended, Miller lingered in the conference room. There's something else, isn't there? Walker asked, recognizing the look on her face. Yes, sir. I did some digging into previous incidents similar to this one. She placed a data pad on the table. 3 times in the last century, outposts went silent along the borders of known space. Each time the Council investigated and found nothing. Each time it was written off as equipment failure, or colonists abandoning their posts. Walker picked up the pad. You think they're connected? I think something's been happening at the edges of our territory for a long time, Miller said, and I think someone's been covering it up. Walker looked out the viewport at the stars. The galaxy had been at peace for centuries, united under the Starship Principle. But what if that peace was built on lies? Set course for the border of Sector 12, he ordered. There's an old monitoring station there that might have recorded ships passing near Weber Colony. As the Guardian prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, Walker couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading towards something that would change the galaxy forever. The age of the Starship Principle, the age of limitation, restraint, and careful peace might be coming to an end, and humanity needed to be ready when it did. The old monitoring station floated in the darkness of space like a forgotten toy. Once a busy outpost marking the edge of human territory, it had been automated for decades. Its sensors still worked, silently watching ships pass through this quiet sector of space. The Guardian approached slowly, running silent. Captain Walker stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the view screen. "Any signs of other ships?" he asked. "None, sir," Lieutenant Miller replied. "We're alone out here." Officer Bell spoke up from his station. "Captain, I'm accessing the station's sensor logs now. The data goes back 3 months." Walker moved to stand behind Bell's chair. "Look for anything unusual around the time Weber Colony went silent." The bridge crew watched as Bell sorted through the data. Minutes passed in tense silence. "There," Bell said suddenly. 6 days ago, a ship passed through this sector heading toward Weber Colony, but it doesn't match any known design in our database." On the screen, a blurry image appeared. The ship was long and sleek, with strange bulges along its sides that might have been weapon ports. Walker had never seen anything like it. "Can you enhance the image?" he asked. Bell tried, but the picture remained fuzzy. "This is the best I can do with the old sensors, but I did find something else." He pulled up another screen. The station recorded energy readings from the ship. If these are accurate, its power output is, well, it's 3 times what should be possible under the Starship Principle. Walker felt his stomach tighten. "Any markings we can identify?" Miller leaned closer to the screen. "There, on the hull, that symbol." She tapped at her console, searching the database. "It belongs to the Thar Collective." "The Thar?" Walker frowned. "They're one of the oldest peaceful races in the galaxy. They helped write the Starship Principle." "Maybe they're not so peaceful anymore," suggested Davis from his security station. Walker shook his head. "Let's not jump to conclusions. Plot a course to the Thar border. Maybe we can—" "Captain," Miller interrupted, her voice urgent. "I'm picking up a distress signal. It's weak, but it's definitely coming from just outside this system." "Put it through." Static filled the bridge, then a broken voice. "Require immediate assistance. We are a Thar science vessel under attack by unknown—" The message cut out, then returned. "Weapons unlike anything. Help us." Walker didn't hesitate. "Set course for that signal. Maximum speed. Prepare for possible combat." The Guardian shot through space toward the source of the distress call. Within minutes, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel into a scene of destruction. A Thar vessel drifted in space, torn apart by what must have been powerful weapons. Pieces of the ship floated around it like a cloud of metal snow. The ship's main section was still intact, but dark and lifeless. "Life signs?" Walker asked. Bell shook his head. "None, sir, but the ship's core is still stable. We could send a team to investigate." Walker nodded. "Prepare a boarding party. I'm going with them." Miller looked surprised. "Sir, protocol says—" "The captain should—" "I know what protocol says, Lieutenant." Walker cut her off. "But I need to see this for myself." The inside of the Thar vessel was cold and silent. Walker led a small team through the darkened corridors, their flashlights cutting through the gloom. The air was thin but breathable. The Thar breathed the same air mix as humans, Walker explained as they moved deeper into the ship. "It's why our species have always gotten along well." They reached the bridge to find it empty of life. The Thar, known for their tall, slender bodies and calm demeanor, were nowhere to be seen, but the ship's computers still worked. "See if you can access their logs," Walker ordered. "I want to know what happened here." Tech Officer Lisa Jones nodded and began working at the alien console. The Thar used a simple operating system that most humans could navigate. Sir, Jones called after a few minutes. I found the final log entry. It's disturbing. The screen lit up with the face of a Thar. Its large eyes looked worried, its normally blue skin pale with fear. This will be our final record, the Thar said in its musical voice. The ship that attacked us bore markings of the Thar Collective, but it was not one of ours. Its weapons, they should not exist, not under the principle. We tried to communicate, but they opened fire without warning. Before our systems failed, we detected modifications to their ship that go far beyond what is permitted. If anyone finds this message, warn the Council. Something terrible is happening. The recording ended. Walker felt a coldness that had nothing to do with the ship's failed life support. Keep searching, he told his team. I want to know everything about this ship and what happened to it. As they explored further, they found something even more alarming in the cargo hold. Weapons. Advanced weapons that the peaceful Thar shouldn't have had. These don't match any known Thar designs, Davis said, examining one of the rifle-like objects. They're more advanced than anything I've seen. Walker picked up one of the weapons. It was lighter than it looked, the metal warm to the touch. They were preparing for something, arming themselves despite the principle. Captain, Miller called over the comm. You need to return to the Guardian immediately. We're receiving an emergency transmission from Earth. Back on the Guardian, Walker watched as Admiral Reed's face filled the main screen. The Admiral looked grim. Walker, the situation has escalated, Reed said without preamble. The Galactic Council has called an emergency summit. 7 major civilizations have reported missing colonies or outposts. This isn't just happening to us. Walker shared what they had found on the Thar vessel. Reed's expression grew darker with each word. This confirms our worst fears, the Admiral said. Someone is violating the Starship principle on a massive scale. I need you to return to Earth immediately. The Council representatives will arrive in 48 hours. As the Guardian set course for Earth, Walker stood alone in his quarters, thinking about what he had seen. The Starship principle had been the foundation of peace for centuries. Every civilization agreed to limit their military technology, ensuring that no one could gain too much power too quickly. Without those limits, war would return to the stars. And from what he had seen on that Thar vessel, someone was already preparing for it. His door chimed. It was Miller. Sir, there's something else you should know, she said. I analyzed the weapon we found. It has components from multiple civilizations. Thar, human, and at least 3 others. Whoever built it had access to technology from across the galaxy. Walker considered this. Not a single rogue group, then. This is bigger. Yes, sir, and one more thing. Miller hesitated. The computer picked up a name in the Thar logs, something called the Vanguard. Before Walker could respond, the ship's alarms blared. Captain, to the bridge, came the urgent call over the comm system. When they arrived, Bell was at his station, his face pale. Sir, we just received word from Earth. A fleet of unidentified vessels has appeared near Jupiter. They're heading toward Earth with weapons powered up. Walker felt his heart sink. The peace had already been broken, and humanity was the first target. The Guardian pushed its engines beyond safe limits, racing toward Earth. On the bridge, Captain Walker watched the status reports with growing dread. Earth's orbital defenses were engaged with the unknown fleet, but the reports weren't good. How? Much longer until we reach Earth? Walker asked. 3 hours at current speed, Miller replied, her face tense. But the battle might be over by then. Walker gripped the arms of his command chair. Can we go any faster? Chief Engineer Green's voice came over the comm. Captain, the engines are already running hot. Push them any harder, and we risk a core breach. Walker closed his eyes for a moment. His ship, the most advanced in the human fleet, might arrive too late to help. Sir, Officer Bell called. I'm receiving a new transmission from Earth Defense Command. Admiral Reed is requesting to speak with you. Reed's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Walker could see the command center was in chaos with officers running back and forth. Walker, the situation is critical, Reed said, his voice steady despite the obvious strain. The enemy fleet consists of 23 ships of unknown design. They've already destroyed 3 of our orbital platforms. What about evacuation? Walker asked. It's underway, but there's not enough time to get everyone off planet. Reed's expression hardened. I've made a decision, Walker. I'm activating Protocol Prometheus. Walker felt his breath catch. Protocol Prometheus was a last resort measure, something discussed only in the most classified briefings. Sir, are you sure? Walker asked. Once we cross that line, the line has already been crossed. Reed interrupted. The Starship Principal is dead. We need to accept that reality and respond accordingly. He looked directly at the camera. Your ship has hidden capabilities, Captain. It's time to use them. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Captain, Miller said quietly. What is Protocol Prometheus? Walker stood up. Lieutenant Miller, Chief Engineer. Green, come with me. The rest of you continue on course for Earth. Deep in the Guardian's engineering section, Walker led Miller and Green to a sealed door marked Maintenance Access Only. He placed his hand on a scanner hidden behind a panel. Captain, James Walker Authorization Code Prometheus Alpha 97. The door slid open, revealing a room that shouldn't exist. Inside was a secondary control center filled with equipment neither Miller nor Green had ever seen before. What is this place? Green asked, his eyes wide. The truth, Walker said simply. For the past 100 years, Earth has been preparing for the day when the Starship Principal might fail. Every ship in our fleet has a secret section like this one, containing systems that go far beyond what the Principal allows. He moved to a control panel and entered a series of commands. Throughout the ship, hidden compartments began to open, revealing weapons and technology that had been concealed even from the crew. We never wanted to use these, Walker continued. The Principal kept the peace, but now that others have broken it, we have no choice. Green ran his hand over one of the newly revealed control panels. These power readings, they're impossible. Not impossible, Walker corrected him. Just forbidden. Until now. Miller looked at her captain with new eyes. You knew about this all along? Only ship captains and the highest levels of Earth Command are briefed on Prometheus. Walker met her gaze. I didn't like keeping secrets from my crew, but it was necessary. A notification beeped on the main console. Walker checked it and nodded grimly. It's happening across the fleet. Every Earth ship is activating their hidden systems. He turned to Green. Chief, I need you to integrate these new systems with our main controls. We have 3 hours to learn how to use weapons no human has ever fired in combat. The battle over Earth was visible from millions of miles away. Flashes of light marked the destruction of ships and defense platforms. The unknown fleet, the Vanguard as they now knew, had pushed past the outer defenses and was approaching Earth orbit. The Guardian dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, joining 5 other human warships that had responded to the distress call. Status report, Walker ordered as they approached the battle. 17 enemy ships still active, Bell reported. Earth's orbital defenses are at 30% capacity. Civilian evacuation is ongoing, but slow. Walker opened a channel to the other human ships. This is Captain Walker of the Guardian. Protocol Prometheus is active. All ships, prepare to engage with full capabilities. On the main view screen, Walker could see the enemy fleet. The ships were sleek and powerful, unlike any known design. They moved with precision, targeting Earth's defenses methodically. They're well trained, Miller observed, fighting as a unit. Walker nodded. Target the lead vessel. Let's show them what humanity has been hiding. The Guardian surged forward, its newly revealed weapons powering up. Energy readings spiked to levels that would have been impossible under the Starship Principal. Weapons locked, Davis reported from Tactical. Ready to fire. Walker took a deep breath. This was the moment when humanity would reveal its true strength and break the principle they had publicly upheld for centuries. Fire. The Guardian released a beam of energy so bright it was hard to look at. It struck the lead enemy vessel, cutting through its shields like they weren't there. The ship broke apart in a silent explosion. The other human ships followed suit, unleashing weapons that had been kept secret for generations. The enemy fleet, caught by surprise, began to scatter. They didn't expect this, Miller said, watching the battle unfold. They thought we were following the principle. This is just the beginning, Walker replied. Target their command ship next. The battle turned quickly. The enemy fleet, facing weapons they hadn't prepared for, began a fighting retreat. Within an hour, they had withdrawn from Earth orbit, jumping to faster-than-light speed with the human fleet in pursuit. As the Guardian followed, Admiral Reed contacted them again. Good work, Walker, he said. But this isn't over. The Vanguard has attacked 3 other worlds in the past hour. This was coordinated. What are our orders? Walker asked. Track that fleet. Find out where they're going and who they really are. Reed's face was grim. Meanwhile, I'll be at the Emergency Council meeting, explaining why Earth just revealed weapons technology we swore we didn't have. After the call ended, Walker stood in silence for a moment. The crew watched him, waiting. The galaxy changed. Today, he finally said. For centuries, every civilized world followed the Starship principle. We limited our weapons, our defenses, our technology, all to maintain peace. He looked around at his crew. That era is over now. We need to be ready for what comes next. Miller stepped closer. Sir, if we had these weapons all along, why didn't we use them to protect our colonies? Because once we revealed them, there was no going back, Walker answered. Earth Command hoped to find another solution. He shook his head. They waited too long. Captain, Bell called out. I'm tracking the enemy fleet. They appear to be heading toward the outer rim, beyond Council space. Walker nodded. Follow them. Keep your distance, but don't lose them. He turned to Miller. Lieutenant, I want everything we have on the Vanguard. Someone in the galaxy must know who they are. As the Guardian pursued the retreating fleet, Walker wondered what other secrets would be revealed in the coming days. If Earth had hidden such power, what might other civilizations have concealed? The age of trust was over. The age of power had begun. For 3 days, the Guardian followed the trail of the Vanguard fleet. They kept their distance, using the ship's enhanced sensors to track the enemy without being detected. The crew worked in shifts, staying alert for any sign of an ambush. Captain Walker spent most of his time on the bridge, sleeping only when Miller insisted. Dark circles formed under his eyes as he studied the path the enemy was taking. They're heading toward the location of one of our missing colonies, Walker said, pointing to a star map. New Denver. Miller leaned over his shoulder, looking at the display. Do you think that's their base? Maybe. Or maybe they're going back to wherever they took the colonists. Walker rubbed his tired eyes. Either way, we need to know what we're facing. The ship's comm system beeped with an incoming message. It was Admiral Reed, looking even more exhausted than Walker. The council meeting was difficult, Reed said without preamble. Several civilizations have accused Earth of violating the Starship principle. Others have admitted they also had secret weapons programs. The principle was already dead, Walker replied. We just confirmed it. Reed nodded grimly. The council is in chaos, but we've formed an alliance with the Thar Collective and 3 other major civilizations. They're sending ships to support your mission. He leaned closer to the camera. Find out what happened to those colonists, Walker, and find out why the Vanguard is doing this. New Denver had been a thriving colony on a rich green world. Now, as the Guardian approached from behind one of the planet's moons, they could see something massive being built on the surface. It looks like some kind of installation, Bell said, examining the sensor readings. Definitely not part of the original colony. It covers nearly 100 square miles. Walker studied the images on the main screen. Are there any people down there? Yes, sir. Several thousand life signs, but they're concentrated in specific areas. And there are strange energy readings throughout the facility. 4 ships from their new alliance had joined the Guardian. 1 Thar vessel, 2 from the Holan Republic, and 1 from the old Varn Empire. Together they formed a small but powerful strike force. We need to get closer, Walker decided. Prepare. A stealth shuttle. I'll lead a small team to the surface. Miller immediately stood up. I'm going with you, sir. Walker nodded. He had expected nothing less. The shuttle landed in a forested area 3 miles from the massive installation. Walker led a team of 6, including Miller and Davis, through the thick undergrowth. The air was clean but carried an odd metallic smell. As they approached the edge of the forest, they got their first clear view of what the Vanguard was building. It was an enormous structure, with towers reaching toward the sky and deep sections that disappeared underground. Energy fields shimmered around parts of it. It almost looks like a defensive position, Davis said quietly, like they're preparing for an attack. But from what? Walker wondered. They moved closer, using scanner technology that had been hidden under the Starship principle. It allowed them to detect the movement of guards and security systems without being found. There, Miller whispered, pointing to an area where people were working. Those are humans. And, are those Thar? Through binoculars, Walker could see colonists from different species working together. They moved without speaking, their faces blank as they carried materials and operated machinery. Something's controlling them, Walker said. We need to get inside. They found an entry point at a loading area where supplies were being brought in. Using stealth technology built into their armor, another violation of the principle, they slipped past the guards and into the massive structure. Inside, the air was colder. The walls were made of a material Walker had never seen before, with strange symbols etched into them. They moved silently through corridors that seemed designed for beings of various sizes. Captain, Miller whispered, checking her scanner. I'm picking up a high concentration of life signs 1 level down. It could be more colonists. They found a way down and entered what appeared to be a large control room. Inside, people from at least 5 different species worked at stations. Their movements were mechanical, their eyes unfocused. They've been mind-controlled somehow, Davis said, scanning one of the workers. Their brain patterns are all wrong. Walker noticed a separate room beyond the control center. Through its transparent walls, he could see a single figure standing. At a large display, the figure was human. Wait here, Walker ordered. If something goes wrong, get back to the ship and warn the others. Using his stealth field, Walker approached the room. The door was unlocked. He stepped inside, weapon ready, and deactivated his stealth field. That's far enough, the figure said without turning around. I was wondering when Earth would find us. The man turned slowly. He was tall and lean, with gray at his temples and a face that looked vaguely familiar. Commander Alex Gray, the man said, introducing himself. Though I suspect Earth has listed me as dead by now. Walker kept his weapon aimed at Gray's chest. You were on the deep space mission to Sector 19. Your ship was reported lost 10 years ago. Gray smiled without humor. Not lost. Enlightened. I found something out there, Captain. Something that changed everything. And what was that? Walker asked, keeping his distance. The truth. That the galaxy is in danger, and the Starship principle was going to get us all killed. Gray gestured to the display behind him. Would you like to see? Against his better judgment, Walker moved closer. The display showed what looked like astronomical data, the movement of stars and galaxies over vast periods of time. Every 50,000 years, Gray explained, something enters our galaxy from the void between galaxies. The ancient records call it the Devourer. It consumes civilizations, entire worlds, and then retreats back into the darkness. He pointed to a pattern in the data. It's due to return within the century. Walker studied the display. And you believe this? I've seen the evidence. The ruins of dead civilizations that once spanned hundreds of worlds, all destroyed at the same time. Their final messages all speak of the same thing. A force they couldn't fight because they weren't prepared. So you decided to prepare, Walker said, understanding dawning. That's what this installation is for. Gray nodded. One of many. We're building across the galaxy. Defense systems on a scale never before imagined. Weapons that could potentially stop even something like the Devourer. By kidnapping colonists? Mind controlling them? Regrettable, but necessary, Gray said, without remorse. We needed workers and we needed secrecy. The Council would never have approved what we're doing. And attacking Earth? How was that necessary? A test, Gray replied. We needed to see how Earth would respond. What hidden capabilities you had. You didn't disappoint. Walker felt his anger rising. You killed innocent people to test us. To save billions more. Gray's eyes hardened. The Starship Principle kept us weak, Captain. It prevented us from developing the weapons we'll need when the Devourer returns. My Vanguard is doing what no one else had the courage to do. Break the rules to save everyone. Walker kept his weapon steady. And who put you in charge of saving the galaxy? Someone had to make the hard choices. Gray moved toward a control panel. You can either help us or stay out of our way, but you can't stop what's coming. Before Walker could respond, an alarm blared throughout the facility. Gray smiled. It seems your friends have been discovered. The choice is yours, Captain. Join us and help save the galaxy, or die here with your principles intact. Walker looked at the man who had once been a respected Earth officer. There's always another way, Gray. One that doesn't involve becoming monsters ourselves. Gray's expression hardened. That's your answer, then? So be it. He pressed a button, and energy fields sprang up around the room, trapping Walker inside. Through the transparent wall, he could see his team being surrounded by armed guards. The galaxy's future hung in the balance, with two human visions of survival now locked in conflict. The energy field around Walker hummed with power. Through the transparent wall, he could see Miller and the others being surrounded by guards with weapons drawn. Gray watched him with cold eyes. Your team will be put to work with the other colonists, Gray said. Their skills will be useful. Walker's mind raced. You're making a mistake, Gray. Ruling through fear and control, that's not the way to save the galaxy. Gray merely smiled. We'll continue this discussion later, when you've had time to reconsider my offer. As Gray turned to leave, the entire facility shook. Alarms blared even louder than before. What was that? Gray demanded, rushing to a console. One of the mind-controlled workers spoke in a flat voice. Allied fleet is attacking the orbital defenses. Multiple ships detected. Gray's face darkened. Launch our ships. Defend the installation at all costs. Outside the energy field, Walker saw Davis make a quick movement. A small device slid across the floor, stopping at the base of the field generator. No one else seemed to notice. Walker met Davis's eyes briefly, then turned back to Gray. You can't win this fight, Commander. Not against the combined forces of 5 civilizations. We don't need to win, Gray replied, his fingers moving over the console. We just need to hold you off long enough to activate our network. Once all our installations are linked together, nobody will be able to stop us. The small device at the base of the field generator blinked once, then twice. Walker tensed, ready to move. The explosion was small but precise. The energy field flickered and died. In the same moment, Davis and Miller drew hidden weapons and fired at the guards, their shots precise and non-lethal. Walker lunged toward Gray, tackling him before he could reach for a weapon. They crashed to the floor, Gray fighting with a strength born of desperation. You're dooming us all, Gray shouted as they struggled. Walker pinned him down. There's always another way, Gray. Always. With Gray subdued and the guards neutralized, Walker and his team took control of the command center. Through the large windows, they could see the battle raging in orbit. The Allied fleet was engaging the Vanguard ships in a display of firepower that would have been impossible under the Starship Principle. We need to free the colonists, Walker ordered. Find the control system that's keeping them under Vanguard. Control. Miller and Davis searched the command center while Walker kept Gray secured. Above them, the battle continued to rage. Here, Miller called after several tense minutes. This seems to be the central neural control system, but it's complex. I'm not sure how to shut it down without hurting the colonists. Walker turned to Gray. Tell us how to free them. Gray laughed bitterly. And undo years of work? Never. Then we'll figure it out ourselves, Walker said. He activated his comm. This is Captain Walker to Allied Fleet. We've secured the main Command center of the Vanguard installation. We need technical specialists to help free the mind-controlled workers. As they waited for support, Walker forced Gray to show them the evidence he'd found. The records of ancient civilizations and the coming threat he called the Devourer. This data, Miller said, examining it closely. It's compelling, if it's real. It's real, Gray insisted. I found it in ruins that were 50,000 years old. The pattern is clear. Walker studied the star charts and ancient warnings. Even if this threat is real, your methods were wrong. You could have brought this evidence to the council. They would have debated for decades, Gray snapped. We don't have time for debate. And you don't have the right to decide for the entire galaxy, Walker replied. The technical team from the Allied fleet arrived an hour later. Working carefully, they managed to disable the neural control system. Throughout the massive installation, thousands of colonists began to wake from their mental prison, confused and disoriented. With the battle in orbit won and the colonists freed, Walker faced a new problem: what to do with Gray's evidence about the Devourer. In his quarters aboard the Guardian, Walker discussed the situation with Miller. Gray is right. We're facing something far worse than the Vanguard, Miller said. Walker nodded slowly. But his solution was just as dangerous. Building weapons that powerful, controlling people's minds. Where does it end? He stared out at the stars, thinking about everything that had happened since they first discovered the missing colonies. The Starship Principle had kept peace for centuries, but it had also kept civilizations divided, each secretly preparing for the day when the Principle would fail. I think I know what we need to do, Walker said finally. 3 days later, on the neutral space station Harmony, representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy gathered in the Grand Council chamber. Walker stood before them, Gray's evidence displayed on the main screen. The Starship Principle served us well for centuries, Walker began. It prevented wars and gave diplomacy time to work. But it also created distrust. Every civilization here developed secret weapons, hidden capabilities that went beyond the principle. We all prepared for the day when someone would break the rules. There were uncomfortable shifts among the representatives, but no denials. Now we face a potentially greater threat, Walker continued, displaying the evidence about the Devourer. Whether this threat is real or not, we can no longer afford to work separately, each civilization hiding its strengths from the others. Walker looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from species he'd never even seen before. I propose a new principle, he said. Not one of limitation, but of cooperation. Instead of hiding our technologies, we share them. Instead of building weapons in secret, we build defenses together. The chamber erupted in voices, some supportive, others skeptical. Walker let them talk, watching as the idea began to take hold. Finally, the ancient representative of the Varn Empire stood, silencing the room. For 10,000 years, my people have kept secrets, the Varn said, its voice translated through a device at its throat. We thought this made us strong. Perhaps it only made us alone. One by one, other representatives stood, offering cautious support for Walker's proposal. It would not be easy. Centuries of distrust would not disappear overnight. But it was a beginning. As the meeting continued, Walker stepped outside to a viewing area overlooking the stars. Miller joined him there. Do you think it will work? She asked. I don't know, Walker admitted. But I believe it's better than Gray's way, and better than going back to the old principle. They watched as ships from dozens of civilizations moved around the station, no longer hiding their true capabilities. Some carried weapons that could destroy planets. Others had defenses that could withstand incredible attacks. All had been hidden until now. Every civilization will remember the day when starships stopped being good, Miller said, quoting the message that had begun their journey. But perhaps they'll also remember what came after. Walker nodded, his eyes on the future. Not the end of an era, but the beginning of something better. Beyond the station, the stars continued their endless dance, unaware of the tiny beings who fought so hard to protect their place among them. Whether the Devourer was real or not, the galaxy would face it together, without secrets, without hiding their strength from each other. It was a new principle for a new age, one born from the ashes of the old. And it had begun with humanity's choice not to conquer but to connect.